Hi, everyone. It's great to see you, and it's great that you can see me. As you know, I've had some technical difficulties. I'm so excited that I have persevered and overcome those, and I can be with you because something is really strong on my heart, and that is this epidemic of dyslexia. So I'm going to do a series on dyslexia. Today, we're going to kind of do an overview and some different perspectives. And I just want to just let you know that as I've seen what's out there on the internet, and I've seen the money that's being spent, the time that's being spent on implementation and training, I just had to speak out with my experience. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. I've been uh, a neurodevelopmentalist for the last 30 years. Been a huge privilege in my life to be able to have this knowledge and to help equip families with information that can change the brain. That's basically what a neurodevelopmentalist is. It's neuro having to do with the brain and development. How is the brain developed so that um, things can be different as far as function? And um, so I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit today. I just want to get this where I can see the chat. So if you have questions along the way, just go ahead and put information in the chat. I'll do my best to uh, get those answers for you as we go along. But first of all, we just have to realize that dyslexia is pretty common. It's very common, and it affects a huge percentage of our population. I mean, like 15 to 20% of our population uh, is considered dyslexic, and that is representing like 80 to 90% of all learning disabilities. So it's really huge. Um, and it seems to be growing. I mean, children with in special education, it's doubled in the last 40 years. And anything that doubles in 40 years and has that big a percentage of the population affected, I would consider it an epidemic. But what's really being done about it? Well, let's look at the definitions to start with. So I'm taking this definition from the International Dyslexia Association. Just going to read through it so you see what they're saying, and then we're going to kind of delve into each part of it and break it down from my understanding. So they say that dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. Okay, we're going to talk about what that is. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition and poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in phonological component of language and is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. The secondary consequences are reading comprehension challenges and reducing because the reading experience is reduced, it can impede the growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. So it's really significantly affecting the individuals. But what does all that mean? Okay, so neurobiological, that means the neurobiological is the study of the structure and function of the nervous system. So the nervous system, as you probably know, the brain and the spinal cord, and then those um, things that go out from that. So those pathways that go out to cause us to function, to move our little finger because we thought that we should, or move our mouth because our brain got that message and cooperated with that. So it's talking about the structure and the function of that nervous system and what shape it's in to be able to read, basically. So, phonological component, you probably understand that the phonemes are each piece that a word has to get the word out from a phonological perspective. And the most interesting part of this definition to me is that it's the relationship um, with other cognitive abilities. Um, so what they're saying is we've got smart kids. These are smart individuals. There's nothing wrong with their IQ, but and not only are they smart, but they've had the instruction, the classroom instruction, but they're not functioning well. So that's basically, they're smart, they've had good instruction, but they aren't successful in their reading. I thought it was interesting, um, the side effects of this. If you don't like to read, then you're not gonna read very much, and that's going to, affect your reading comprehension. And then, that reduced reading is going to make it where you're not involved as much with, higher level vocabulary, and you're not gonna get all that background knowledge that you need. So, sometimes it makes it, challenging in all the other subjects because of this lack of, reading or wanting to read. Now, I wanted you to get a little bit of a glimpse of what the professionals say. That definition helps you to understand what the professionals are saying. And uh, we're going to get a contrast today about what the professionals say and what neurodevelopmentalists say. So let me just go here for a moment. Um, and talk about what the scientists are saying. They said scientific research shows difference in brain connectivity between dyslexia and typical reading children, providing a neurological basis for why reading fluency is a struggle for these with those with dyslexia. So, if you have what is brain connectivity? Well, we have this tremendous gift that God's given us called brain plasticity. And what happens with brain plasticity is if the brain is stimulated, then it starts to function better. So if you have specific stimulation, it makes those pathways in the brain even faster and more usable. So this brain connectivity, the cool thing is it can change because, um, well, everyone, if you think about it for a moment, if you know someone that's had a stroke and they've regained function, that illustrates this brain plasticity because part of the brain was damaged with the stroke, but the when the brain was stimulated, then that function started to come back. The professionals also say that it's a lifelong condition. Um, I'm going to beg to differ with that, and that may make me sound very heretical here, because you've been told over and over if your child has dyslexia or if you have dyslexia, that there's nothing you can do, that it's a lifelong condition. You're going to have to cope and compensate all of your life. And I'm going to talk about how that might be different if we just have the understanding of that brain plasticity, that if you do stimulate the brain with the correct information, then it's going to respond with better function. So, Where did all this start? You may wonder about that. As I'm doing research years and years ago from my master's degree, I did my master's paper on dyslexia, and I looked in depth into Samuel Orton, and he was like in the 1920s naming this word blindness, as he called it. He named it dyslexia. But the interesting thing is that as I'm reading what he was writing then, he said these people have several different common things. Now they all don't have all of these kinds of symptoms, but many of them have balance issues. They have coordination issues. They're just, a little clumsy or have those coordination issues. He said they have eye issues. Now, this could be a number of different things. It could be tracking, convergence, just not seeing well right in the center, your central vision being affected. But, he said a lot of them have eye issues, and then some of them have dominance issues. Dominance can be your dominant hand, your dominant eye, your dominant ear. There's several different aspects of our dominance, but he identified that as one of the issues that people have. And then, of course, he said there's phonetic awareness challenges. Now, there's 5 different things here, but since his death in 1948, which is, close to he started naming this, 100 years ago, and all through his adult life from the 20s to, like, 48 when he died, he was associated with, um, Gillingham. And so you probably know Orton Gillingham, the teaching method that most everything for dyslexia is built on. So it's either Orton Gillingham or some close cousin to that as things have evolved along the way, which is the basis for most prevalent forms of remediation or helping with dyslexia. But I want to ask you, in the last 100 years, how many innovations we've had in every aspect of our life. And for us to be just doing the phonetic awareness all these years just seems a little antiquated to me. So here's what I think has happened. The professionals that have told you this is lifelong, you have to cope and compensate, there's no, um, way that you can get past this, those people have seen all of these individuals um, with those symptoms, and nothing different except this one phonetic awareness, program has been done with them, and they always have those same symptoms of dyslexia, lifelong. Now, as a neurodevelopmentalist, what we've seen is something totally different. So we see the people with all these symptoms that Orton was talking about, like balance issues, coordination, eye issues, dominance. Um, all of those things are a factor in what we do versus mainly the main thing is, they just kind of got rid of all these things and they do phonics. So, uh, what I've seen has been totally different. Now, I'd like to tell you a story about a young man named John, and I met John when he was 10 and a half. But his story kinda started back in kindergarten, 1st grade. He, came home from school one day, and he said, "I'm not a very smart little boy." So what breaks my heart about dyslexia is that oftentimes people get this idea of, "I must not be very smart," when it really doesn't have anything to do with the IQ, it has to do with how the brain is organized and the different pathways that are being utilized. So, and we just talked about that, how that can change, right? A stroke victim can gain different function. So the same thing can happen with a child with dyslexia. So he comes home, tells his mom, I'm not a very smart little boy. She goes to the school, she's horrified because she knows he's brilliant, but he's obviously struggling. Well, the school can't do anything about anything for him because he was so smart. He could compensate, and of course, he wasn't failing. He was just struggling. So mom decided to take him out of school and have him independently tested. Sure enough, he's got the label of dyslexia. And then she put him in a private school. And during his schooling, he went through the 2-year typical phonetic awareness dyslexia program. And when I saw him at 10 and a half, he was at grade level. He was scoring fifth grade in, I think it was fifth grade, third month in word recognition. So that's any word he could um, say on this particular test. And then in comprehension, he was like the beginning of sixth grade because he was so smart. Even if he couldn't remember all those words, then he could tell what it meant. Even if he couldn't get all of those words. So his mom had come to me and said, he's doing okay, but and he's made a lot of progress in reading, but he's having to struggle really hard. Is there something we can do? So we started on a neurodevelopmental program for John, and we looked at those different areas. As a neurodevelopmentalist, we actually look at 6 different areas of function, like auditory, visual, tactile, the mobility, the movement, the handedness, and we look at those areas, and also language, on 9 different levels of brain development, and we find out where the glitches are and what's causing, there's a cause and effect in everything. If this uh, area is not working as well as it should, it has a ripple effect on other areas of the function because you've got information coming into the brain through the senses, and then what is the brain doing with those things? That's what we look at as neurodevelopmentalists. And that's really what Orton was alluding to when he was talking about those other things that these people were having, like balance and coordination and eye issues. So we look at all that and write a program of activities to stimulate the brain for that to happen at home. What we found is instead of going to a therapy once a week for a long period of time, if you do a few activities each day, 2 minutes of this, 2 minutes of that, 1 minute of this, twice a day of this, those kind of things, that frequency and intensity and direct in short periods of time, over time, you build those new pathways. And what comes to mind right now is like when you were learning long division, if you learn long division and then they went on to something else and they came back to long division, chances are you don't remember how to do long division. Um, but if you see long division, uh, 2 problems a day, every day, then that pathway for understanding that, the process of long division is solidified, and you don't have any trouble with it when it comes back around. So we did this for John, and he worked on his neurodevelopmental program for about 16 months. And when he came for his final evaluation, he was like ninth grade, and he was only sixth grade age, but he scored ninth grade in word recognition and 10th grade in comprehension. And he was for someone with dyslexia that's usually behind, right? They usually get further and further behind because we're not addressing the root cause. And for him to be far ahead is pretty unusual, but he had 130 IQ. So it was more commensurate with his IQ that functional ability. So, these are the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about along the way. So, the series I'm going to be doing, we're going to break down each one of those things that um, Orton was talking about, and then some that I've discovered as well along the way. We'll just go into depth about those each week. So, be looking for that. Um, Come join us for a discussion on that and you can leave comments and we'll get to those as we can. um, but I think this is going to really broaden your understanding of dyslexia and give you much more hope. And that brings me to what you're supposed to do: click all the buttons and subscribe and all those things that people ask you to do. I guess if we aren't reminded, sometimes we forget, but please do that. And then share this video with a friend. You would be very surprised to know that probably 1 in 5 of your friends are suffering silently and need some hope for their child's future. So share it with your group and know that you can make a huge difference for someone to give them some hope for their child. That's what I needed when I was a mom years ago of a child with learning challenges and found this for them. That's why I've been doing this ever since, to just help give other people the tools they need to stimulate the brain so the changes are made. So really, what we're looking at is professionals that were see all these symptoms, nothing different was done, and they still had those symptoms. But in neurodevelopment, when something different is done, that stimulation to the brain, it changes the function tremendously. So I want you to remember, little neurodevelopmental steps equal giant gains in life's basic functions, whether they're academic or just their functional ability to clean their room, those kind of things. So it's been a pleasure to be with you. Hopefully, um, you'll be with me next time to ask questions live. I'll be glad to answer those as we go along in this series. And until next time, we'll see you next Wednesday, 1 o'clock.